Welcome to the Woman's Current. Is the Tide Turning? I'm Sylvia Beckerman.
And I'm Molly Wadzik. Together we're exploring how women support women across generations, experiences, and perspectives.
From baby boomers to millennials and beyond, we're asking, are we lifting each other up? And how do we keep the tide moving forward?
Each week, we'll dive into real conversations with women who are reshaping the currents and reflect on what those stories mean for all of us.
So let's dive in. Let's get started.
I think it's been inside of many of us, whether we called it that or not, this idea that another woman's success does not detract from yours, that it in fact collectively helps us all rise.
I'm Sylvia Beckerman, and this is the Woman's Current, Is the Tide Turning? Today I'm solo. Molly couldn't join me for this conversation, but her voice and perspective is woven throughout, as always. So, what we're going to be doing, we're diving into something right at the heart of our conversations, women celebrating other women. Today's guest is someone who's been making waves across social media and beyond. Erin Gallagher, founder of Hype Women, a movement dedicated to amplifying women's voices, achievements, and power in real time, and is the author of the newly released Hype Women, Breaking Free from Mean Girls, Patriarchy, and Systems Silencing You. Erin, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Sylvia, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm grateful to you and Molly for creating this space to have these types of conversations. So I'm looking forward to where ours is going to go.
You got it. And for that, we'll be talking about visibility, self-promotion without apology, and how women can hype one another across generations, not just online, but in the rooms that matter. Because the tide is shifting and it's loud. All right. So, what inspired you to start Hype Women? The term Hype Women has become part of our cultural vocabulary thanks to you.
You know, it has always been inside of me. I think it's been inside of many of us, whether we called it that or not. This idea that another woman's success does not detract from yours, that it in fact collectively helps us all rise. And so I grew up surrounded by women. My mom was a single mother. All of my cousins were girls. I have one sister. So women were just very present in every aspect of my rearing and my education, my sports teams, Girl Scouts. This sort of team of women was always a part of my life, and that continued into college when I joined a sorority and then, went on and continued to build lifelong friendships. So the fabric of it was woven into my DNA. And the foundation was there. But what began the seed planting of what became the Hype Women movement really started to take hold when I turned 40. Because when I turned 40, it was just this very momentous moment for me that caused me to look around at my life and say, is this still working for me? Is this job and the way that I work still working? Is my partnership with my husband and the way that it is currently structured still working? Is the way that I'm parenting my two boys still working? How about these friendships that I've had for 20 years? These relationships with other women in business? I am doing a lot of this the same way I've always done it because I never considered I had another option. And so when I started to say it's not working and I started to make different choices about who had access to me, where I was putting my time and energy, my life started to look very different. People fell away from it, right? and roles that I played, identities that I had like really centered my entire life around started to break apart. And I had to figure out who I actually was now and who I was going to be going forward. So I started writing prolifically on LinkedIn. And because I was no longer working for anyone, I said whatever the hell I wanted to. And backlash was opinion. And to me, it wasn't direction. People that didn't like how honest I was being, how vulnerable I was being, that no longer was a concern to me. And so when on January 11th, a photo came into my feed, 2023, of Jamie Lee Curtis with her arms outstretched, screaming in celebration, sitting next to Michelle Yeoh with her head in her hands, I was stopped in my tracks. And I said, what is happening here? Because without context, you think Jamie has won something.
Mm-hmm.
And what I come to learn is that that was the moment that Michelle won Best Actress for her lead role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it was the first time that she was nominated ever in her more than 40-year storied career. So it was a really powerful moment for the two of them. And it was Jamie's just very natural reaction to unabashedly hype her friend. And I thought to myself when I saw it, we so rarely see women doing this, celebrating another woman's success as if it were her own. Because what we see a lot of the time, Sylvia, is women who see another woman succeeding and do this. Wow, that's so great for you, right? It's that half-hearted, not really genuine, probably coming from a place of jealousy or envy. That's the support. It's not genuine hype.
No, because if you really felt it, you would do what Jamie Lee did
That's right.
without holding back. It would just be
Unabashed.
natural.
That's right. It's why I called it, like I said, this is our vibe for 2023, ladies, unabashed hype women, because that meant that we were going to let down our guard. We were going to decondition from what we have been taught, that women are threats to us, that they are our competition. We were going to start to make some different choices to rewire our brains. And that just set my life on a different course.
It's amazing how events that you wouldn't even think of can just propel us forward. And, we live in a society. I grew up as a baby boomer. You kept a lot to yourself. You weren't really supposed to, it wasn't supposed to be out there in the room, let alone you might be thinking it, but it wasn't out there in the room. And to have women, to actually see women celebrate other women and clapping and whopping and just being natural, I can see how that started you on a new path.
Yeah. And what I've discovered even more deeply over these past almost 3 years since that viral post that Jamie Lee Curtis then posted to her 5.6 million followers, and we have now developed a friendship, is that it's not just about celebrating another woman's win once she's achieved it. It's also about helping her get there. So that's this other piece where hype is not a sort of throwaway megaphone moment. It is a transfer of capital from one person to the other, whether it's your human, social, financial, or political capital, because that is true hype. That is true hype. Hype that is going to move the needle, that is going to help someone that you care about achieve a goal and to remove barriers that are in their way.
So, why do women still hesitate to be visible, even as we talk about empowerment?
Because we are conditioned to view celebrating and amplifying our own work as gratuitous and self-indulgent. We are told that when we sell, which is really anything that you do to grow your own business is selling, but we're told that is a dirty thing to do. It's a dirty word, and that we shouldn't be doing it with friends and don't talk about it, that it should just happen, right? There's all this stuff about women existing in their own lives that have all of these rules that we are following. So when you look at the lot of your life, and don't even get that sort of expansive yet, look at your day. When you look at where you're putting your time and energy, how much of it is on your terms and how much of it is in service to other people? More often than not at the expense of yourself. If we keep doing that, you are teaching yourself and other people that you are worth less and that you have less value. And so when we start to take back our time and our energy from people that are stealing our spirit, we not only begin to create these boundaries that strengthen our own foundation, but we start to open ourselves up and invite people that actually are there to pour into us, to our sphere. And so I think the simplest answer, Sylvia, is it's conditioning. Almost everything that we think is our belief is actually our conditioning. And so when you go through the day and you come across another person and you have all of these thoughts in your head, and a lot of them are judgmental, and they are about women more often than not, pause for a second and say to yourself, do I really believe that? Or is that just something I have been taught my whole life and I never considered that it wasn't the truth?
Well, that is just such an important statement because especially as women, going back in my day, 50s, the 60s, 70s, there were things that you were supposed to do. Society told you what you were supposed to do. And to be able to break away from that and to be able to not only just have your energy around, but to be able to celebrate yourself, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to open your mind, your heart. You won't be able to celebrate others without being able to celebrate yourself first. And being able to do that gives you the freedom and the joy to celebrate, to transfer that to others.
That's right. You can't stop loathing or lusting after other women's lives until you start loving and living your own. Because you will see every part of another person's existence as a comparative exercise. So you just have to get to a point where you say, am I going to do this on everyone else's terms, or am I going to do it on my own?
Well, what makes visibility feel different between generations?
Well, I think technology is a huge differentiator between generations. When I think about my mom, who's 72, growing up and her career, everything happened in the room. And then it was maybe transferred by word of mouth. And then you had a news cycle that was not a 24/7 news cycle. And so there was not an expectation that there was going to be constant content. And so it was a more controlled life with less, right? With less feedback, expectations, demands. That is not the case today. So visibility looks very different to someone who's coming up in their career now. You have a multitude of platforms that you are expected to be present on. And you also have this phone in your hand that gives more people access to you than you would like, right? And yes, you can control it to a certain degree, but here I am as a 43-year-old woman, and I have 9 and 7-year-old sons. I talk to my mom a lot about the fact that her experience as a grandmother is very different than her mother's experience as a grandmother. And more specifically, my experience versus hers, because she expects to know a lot of things about what's going on with my kids. She wants input. She wants to see photos often. She wants to FaceTime. Like, there is this desire to have access that is so much easier than when I was growing up and there was a landline and there was the mail, right? So like, if you wanted to see your grandkids and you lived in Hawaii and your grandkids lived in Louisiana, which was the case for a period of time, my mom would have to take a photo, go to the store to get it developed, and then put it in the mail and send it to my grandma, and then get on the phone with her, reach her when she was at home, and then talk about the photo. Like, that is a slower, more controlled environment than right now, where I could text my mom 50 photos and they will get to her in half of a second.
Hey, look, I can go on Instagram and grab photos of my grandsons that I
Correct.
don't have,
Right.
and add them to the thousands I have.
Exactly. So when you talk about visibility, we are just so much more visible to everyone, whether it's professionally or personally. And beyond that, we also are required, and there's a desire for us to be more visible for the people who are in our personal lives. It is exhausting. It's a real, right? It's a really exhausting experience, because then the other thing that happens, and I have to guess this happens for you, Sylvia, because you are a human woman, human person. You see a photo on Instagram of your grandsons and you're like, why didn't I know that was going on? Right. And so there is this, because there's so much more visible information about what other people are doing, we have even more opportunity to feel left out, not included, not consulted. I just got a text from my mom. Hi, honey, literally, it came onto my screen. Hi, honey, how are you doing? And I'm sure she's like, I saw you post earlier today, so I know you're awake. Like, this is, oh God, my book always falls over when I say something that I'm probably technically not supposed to. It's like she like moves because she's like, oh shit, it's happening. But that, right, that like, that requirement to be so visible, whether it's personal or professional, is exhausting.
It's very exhausting. It's very exhausting, and we need to find the balance, because it zaps so much energy. There's, the good stuff, and then there's the stuff that we really don't need to. We don't need to feel that we've been left out. We don't need to feel that someone's doing better than us. Again, we need to go back to getting that courage, that the good feeling about ourselves, which is something that when women celebrate other women, it gives us that strength to maybe fight off any kind of feeling of being left out, because we have that great circle that we have built ourselves.
Absolutely. It's a shot of epinephrine. That's what it feels like when it's done right.
When it's done right.
And it, to me, it's a replacement of the cortisol. So when you are having those feelings of feeling left out, feeling like something didn't land the way you wanted it to, you're not as successful as another person, you don't have as great of a life, and that cortisol is flooding your body, it is going to impact not only the choices that you make following that moment, but also how you perceive everything happening around you. So hype is an antidote. It's an antidote to all of these negative feelings, limiting beliefs, moments of jealousy and self-loathing or envy. It is an antidote because it is rewiring our brains and repathing them and flooding them with endorphins instead, because it feels good to hype another person. And then it feels good to them to be hyped. And there is this ripple effect that takes place. It's an unwritten contract with the right people that you continue to do this for each other. This is what has happened with Jamie and me over these past few years. We don't have a signed contract that says every time you hype me, I hype you back. Right? It's not there. We have different things that we are focused on. We're at different life stages. We have different responsibilities, but we are making time for this. And it is supporting and helping each other's goals in life. Regardless of how small that act of hype can seem, it really can do unbelievable amplification and visibility for another person.
Well, Molly wanted to ask, something that I also think about. How do we balance authority and authenticity and professionalism? She sees a lot of women her age, and she's a millennial, craving realness, but worrying that being too real might cost them respect or opportunities.
Yeah, well, as a geriatric millennial, who had 2 geriatric pregnancies, because, I mean, you do anything over 35 and they're like, well, she's done.
I understand.
Right? Yeah, it's cool. I mean, listen, medical misogyny is also just another fun part of being a woman. But so here's what I would say to Molly. Here's what I would say to Molly. When I was inside of corporate America, when I was inside of the first company I co-founded with 2 other women, my vulnerability was positioned to me as a liability.
Mm-hmm.
I was told that I needed to stop being so honest. Online, in person, I was putting our work at risk because I was telling people that I was having a hard time, that motherhood wasn't all sunshine and roses.
You mean it's not?
I mean, what? How dare I not just be a grateful woman who is happy to be where I am put? So what I would say to Molly is, likability is subjective. What makes you endearing to one person might make you intolerable to another. So you might as well just do your damn thing.
You might as well.
You might as well.
If you're going to be shot down, you're going to be shot down. But again, if you believe in yourself, you'll be able to take that. It's a dance that we do.
It's a dance, and I think maybe this side of 40, I just am unwilling to tango anymore with these people because I'm wearing this sweater. Half the people who see it are going to hate it, and half the people who see it are going to love it. So if I make choices about every move I make in my life, every act based on what I think other people are going to think, I will become so paralyzed that I will end up doing nothing. And so women have been taught, this is conditioning, women have been taught that it is more important to be liked by others than to love yourself. That message is loud and clear across every single industry. So when you finally get to a point where you sit down and you say, not for me. It's actually not more important for me to do all of these things that I don't feel good about in order to be liked. You take all of your power back.
Well, that kind of answers, what does authentic visibility look like to you?
Yeah, it looks like listening to your intuition and letting that be your guide.
So, where have you seen women truly show up for each other in meaningful, lasting ways?
I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it in business. I've seen it in the entrepreneur community where you have women who say, let me impart my wisdom and share with you mistakes I've made so you don't have to go through the same struggles. I've seen it in motherhood where you have a group of women that surround you in your darkest moments to tell you that there is light on the other side, and they validate your experience and give you a hand to help pull them out. So I think that you can either see it everywhere or you can see it nowhere. It depends on where you decide to stand. Because if you are standing amongst women who are at their core mean girls, right? Mean girls who were playground bullies that grew up to be metastasizing confidence and career-killing SWAT teams. If you have that type of woman in your midst, you will feel like you're not good enough. You will start to question your skills inside of your job. You will start to wonder if you are a bad mother. You will start to think that your body is ugly. You will start to question every choice that you make. And so you can either see or not see the hype women in your life based on who you are standing with and around. And my like piece of advice here is the best way to figure out what type of women you are among is to ask yourself, how do they make me feel?
Bingo.
Right?
And
You'll
it's not
know.
a
You'll know.
question that people ask themselves.
That's right. And when you really do look at it, you'll say to yourself, well, actually, that person always makes me feel bad. I always feel anxious when I see their number pop up in my text thread. I always feel less than when I'm at an event where she is. So spend less time with those people, right? Like shift your spend, your time, your energy, your money away from them and shift it towards the women who actually have your back, who are pouring into you and who want to see you succeed.
Because you're not going to lose anything, you're going to gain.
Correct.
And
Correct.
for some women, that's a very scary thing to break from something that they realize they've been with for quite some time, but it hasn't been healthy. That person doesn't make them feel
Listen.
good.
Mean girls are master manipulators.
Yes, they are.
This is not a simple thing, and I am not taking it lightly. It took me a long time to break free from the craw of mean girls that I worked with, were friends with. So it's not a simple situation. And again, they are so good at what they do. That trauma bond is deeply, deeply strengthened by your willingness to see the good in them when it happens in fleeting moments, right? Because you're like, well, but there was that one time that she did buy me coffee when I was having a hard time. And you're like, yeah, but she also got you fired. Like, so,
Just a small thing.
Exactly. So it's like, you got to start to say, listen, without having to give extreme examples of nuance and excuses, do they make you feel good or bad? Full stop. And then just start to shift away. Just start to shift away from those that actually make you feel bad.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
It's like having an addiction. It takes time to do it because it is an addiction to be drawn to or drawn into people like that, mean girls. And it's, you have to give yourself the time and patience, but you have to have that courage to start taking those small steps that turn into larger steps and breaking away.
That's right.
Have we lost something as empowerment? The word empowerment has become more of a brand than a practice.
I personally am not a fan of the word empowerment.
Well, neither am I, but
yeah. So I don't want to see women empowered. I want to see them in power. So for me, that's the simple shift. It's like, listen, when you say like empowered is sold to us as an active choice, but really it's this very passive um, gift. Oh, we're going to empower women to make the money that they deserve. No, actually, I don't need any of that shit. I just need you to pay us. So, right. So it's like, let's stop categorizing all of these acts of discrimination and of misogyny and putting again the onus on these women to like take it differently or handle it better. I I just think that like we need women to be in their own power, in their own bodies, to reclaim the power inside of their lives, their energy, their time, where they are investing all of that, and then to achieve the power inside of their professional desires without the unbelievable lack of access. Like when we see the lack of women and people of color, and in particular women of color, in positions of power and influence, it never has to do with lack of ambition or ability or aspiration. It always has to do with lack of access. So to me, it's like, let's just stop creating the barriers and see where the chips fall.
Molly also raised a good point. You've spoken about performative positivity. How can women tell the difference between genuine community and branding language?
Well, if someone is good at branding, you can't. I mean, right? Like a good marketer and a good branding person, when you don't yet have a one-to-one experience with them, you don't know. You actually don't. Because if it comes off that way, you're going to be inclined to believe it. So I think it's always about doing a deeper investigation. You can't just take something at face value anymore, especially because we know with the emergence of AI, things can be made to seem very different than they are. And so it is about doing a deeper dive into a person, a product, a brand, get past that really shiny exterior and packaging and messaging, and figure out what's actually happening behind the scenes. Test out the product yourself. Go to one of the events that this woman is holding. So I think that it's really difficult online to have the full picture of a brand, whether that brand is a person or a company or a product or a service. It is going to require that you put a little time and effort into getting to know it.
Now, Hyped Women began as a reaction to seeing women undercelebrated, I believe on LinkedIn. What's changed since then and what hasn't?
More of our rights have been taken away from us since that, right? Like being a woman is even harder than it was 3 years ago. I think that for me, I mean, that is such a big question, Sylvia. Everything has changed or nothing has changed is kind of the way that I would answer that. But for me, what I can personally speak to is that I shifted from focusing on the macro to the micro. I was really trying to change the world out there. And that's what I did inside of the first company I co-founded. I was working with huge Fortune 100 companies, United Airlines, McDonald's, LinkedIn, to try to change their policies and practices to make them a better place for women to work. I was counseling the White House. I spent 107 days working on Kamala Harris's campaign to help get her elected our first and 47th president, first woman president. So I was really focusing on the macro. I was out there feeling like I needed to help change it up here. And when Kamala Harris was not elected, my first reaction would have been, okay, what do I do next? How do I run to fix this? And I just sat with the grief. And I said to myself, I got to start focusing on what's happening inside of my own house. I need to start focusing on what's happening inside of my own body. I need to start focusing on what's happening inside of my own family and community. Because if I do that, and if I help other women do that for themselves, well, that groundswell of change is going to shift tectonic plates. And that is going to be an uprising that no one can stop. So macro to micro has been the shift that I have been experiencing, and it's the one that I hope other women are focused on more too.
It's so important. Everyone, or the majority of people, especially women, think that it has to be a huge change. It has to be a huge on that macro. Well, those little changes, those little stories, those little, kudos, it swells. It's contagious. It's like I've always said, a smile is the best thing you could have because it's contagious. It's that feeling about yourself that you can then make changes. Um, the macro, I am so glad that you said that, and at the period of time when you realized it, because it's so important. It makes such a huge difference in how we go
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely. No one is coming to save us but ourselves. And if you can save yourself versus trying to save everyone else or expecting that other people are going to save you, that is really just going to shift sort of the trajectory of where women go in this next decade.
What does real support look like today beyond a like, a share, a hashtag?
I think that the people who show up when you're shiny, this kind of goes back to your other question too about like, how do you know when hype is real or not? They're going to be the people who always show up when you're shiny, right? Some big article comes out, you're getting a lot of attention. All of a sudden, they're back in your feed. They're checking in. They're seeing how you're doing. They're telling you you're amazing. They're commenting on your post because this post has a ton of traction. I am always paying attention to that, right? The people who show up only when you're shiny and then abandon you when you appear dull, that is a red flag. Those are people who are not in it for the right reasons, and they are very much in it for themselves. So, for me, it's about the people who are consistent. Consistency is such a underrated quality.
It is.
I love a consistent
some
person.
people say it's boring. Oh,
God,
it's not.
I will take a consistent person over a in your face, exciting, dramatic person every day of the week, because consistent people help to regulate your nervous system. And a regulated nervous system allows you to operate in a much better capacity than one that is fight or flight. In fight or flight, you make decisions that are based on fear and survival. And so if you have people around you who are consistent and who are respectful, and doesn't mean they're like quiet and not saying anything, right? They can be fun and lively,
Why not?
but they're consistent. Then
Consistently fun and lively.
I mean, God, I love those people, right? Then you can breathe easier. And the experience that you have in their midst is just a much more enjoyable one. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you the next question. Have you seen examples where public hype led to something real, a job, a partnership, a shift in confidence?
I think the really easy example is Jamie
Yeah.
hyping me, right? I mean, I have written a ton of posts on LinkedIn prolifically. I've written prolifically on LinkedIn. I have a post that was one of the 100 most impactful posts of the decade. And that post was about breastfeeding. That did not, even though it has 6 million views, it didn't get the firestorm that my unabashed hype women post got. And that was because of Jamie. So if I hadn't decided to write that post, Jamie never sees a post because it doesn't exist. Okay, there's phase one. But then if Jamie doesn't read my post and feel something that then makes her post it to her platform. So she then said, I think this is valuable enough to see that I am going to put my name behind it and share it with my followers. That took it to another stratosphere. Within 3 days, 15 global publications picked it up. I started, because I'm an entrepreneur, I ran with it. I turned my site into hypewomen.com. I bought the URL. I created a podcast. So that like smoldering fire that I had been tending to for decades, right? Just stoking it, keeping it going. When it got really low, getting some more kindling to throw on it. Every once in a while, like it kind of blazed and then went out and I had to light it again, right? Jamie poured kerosene on it.
Yes, she did.
She poured kerosene on it. And so when you have someone that sees your potential, and is willing to put their name behind what you're doing, and that person has power and influence, it can change your life. And it's a book now, right? Jamie Lee Curtis wrote the foreword to the book. And so all of these moments are choices that I made and she made that built into something else. And when you have people like that who are conspiring in your favor along with the universe, it takes a lot of the pressure off. It really does.
Okay, so how can we reframe self-promotion as leadership rather than ego?
Just pretend you're a straight white man.
I love that.
Literally, that's all you do. So when you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to post about this new course that I have. Okay, cool. Go look at Adam Grant. You think that motherfucker thinks twice about promoting himself?
Well, absolutely not.
He literally has turned everything he's done into 700 million posts that promote himself. That, like, he doesn't do that because he is like, I just want all these people to have all this knowledge. No, he wants to drive back to himself so that you will buy his books and you will pay him to come speak so that he can have a life. And listen, no shade. Like, we all have to make a living. So when you are ever thinking, I just don't know. Oh, okay.
No.
Go ahead. Think about what a straight, white, cisgendered man would do, and you will save yourself a hell of a lot of time.
Okay, next up. What roles do mentors and allies play in helping women amplify one another?
I would take a sponsor over a mentor any day. Because the sponsor is saying your name in rooms where you're not. They are actively working on your behalf. A mentor is like, hey, come and talk to me. Ask me what you want to know, what you want to learn. I don't think you even necessarily need that. You can witness people all the time. They can be your mentor without knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is not as necessary as it used to be. You need sponsors, especially if you're in corporate America. Holy hell, do you need sponsors who are advocating for you? Because if they are not, then someone else is advocating for themselves and you are getting left out of the consideration set. This is a great example going back to what happened with Michelle Yeoh. She was not a part of the consideration set for 40 years. To never be nominated for any of the roles that she was in, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, all of the incredible work that she had done, this time someone made sure that she was a part of the consideration set. And because of it, she won. And that has started to shift her life in different ways. So I would say find someone who is willing to advocate for you and give them the tools that they need to make their job easier to do it. And then follow up with them and ask them how it's going.
Yep. Follow up is key. All right. So now, Molly was also curious about the generational conversation, what each generation actually gets right about ambition and self promotion. Do you see Gen Z's rejection of hustle culture as a setback or maybe a healthy rebalancing?
I love it so much. I love it. And I think that everyone who is not a part of Gen Z doesn't love it because we're jealous. I can't tell you how many times my experience as a woman coming up in corporate America was made worse because the women before me had to struggle, and they thought that I should have to struggle the same way. So even though we had new information, and even though we have new ways of working and opportunities, it was like, well, why should you get 12 weeks of parental leave when I only got 4? And so that, what's underneath that is hurt. So when women who were senior to me wanted me to have to struggle the way they did, that was not innovative. That was not a healed person. That was not growth. That was someone whose hurt was shaping their worldview. So what's up, Sylvia? I feel like you
Nothing.
gotta
All I know is that is something that I've talked to so many people about, because you're talking about baby boomers, you're talking about my generation. And, when I was running businesses and I was starting out, there were a couple of women who were above me who did have that mindset. But luckily, there were women who did not.
Yes.
And it made such a difference.
It can actually change your life.
Yes.
It can change, right? It can change your life. And
It's-
so we have to lose this, like, this martyrdom to grit that is this badge of honor. It is such a false bullshit ideology. And so I love that Gen Z is like, yeah, we're not gonna do it the way you did it. And by the way, we don't even need your permission because we have developed our own system that doesn't require that you approve of what we do. I mean, it's actually driving a significant number of people crazy because they're like, God damn it, how did they do that? I never was able to do that. What about my struggle? Versus saying like, oh my God, good for y'all. Yes, thank you. We have been going down the wrong path for far too long. We have got to get rerouted. And hazing people does not heal your hurt.
Okay. That is so true. And as I said, I've lived it a while ago. Do you ever feel pressure yourself to always be positive? How do you handle the days you don't feel like hyping anyone, including yourself? Because I'm sure you must have those days.
Oh, absolutely. I'm human. I'm a person that exists in a world that is heavy and hard. I am a woman who is still menstruating, but also going through perimenopause. And so I have my own body's physiology that shifts how I feel every day.
Yes, it does.
Something that we don't talk enough about, like women are just expected to show up with a smile on our face and a positive attitude without acknowledging all of the challenges that are both happening inside of our bodies, but also to us out in the world. So I give myself a lot more grace now, Sylvia, than I used to.
Good.
I say, like, you know what? I need to kind of just be cocooned away today or for the next few days. I'm not going to be able to show up for everyone in the way that they want me to. And the right people will understand. They'll know that it has nothing to do with them or my love for them or my dedication. It has to do with me honoring myself and not choosing to serve others and abandon myself in the process over everything. So I just have really started to listen to myself more and to be communicative about why I'm making certain choices with the people that I impact.
That is so healthy. So healthy. And I'm glad you said it, because it is something that as women, there were so many things that we weren't supposed to talk about. There were so many things that we weren't supposed to react to. There was, and there still is, all the myth about how we're supposed to act. You talked about perimenopause, menopause. There are so many things that if we don't, as women, listen to our bodies, um, it's going to be harmful to everyone around us, our children, where we work, what we do, our friends. And I do see a shift in that. I see one that I am so glad is happening. It needs more. Some of the focus to me is a little nutty, but at least there's stories out there, there's voices out there. It's a beginning. We have a
Yeah.
long way to go. It's a long way, baby. That whole thing.
Long way, baby.
Yeah. How have we gotten there? Okay. What gives you hope about how women are showing up for each other now?
What gives me hope is women are showing up for each other in such a vulnerable way now that I don't feel like I had seen in years before. And that vulnerability, that telling of the truth, is freeing so many women from shame and blame. And so showing up doesn't always look like, you're doing amazing, I'm so proud of you, you're great. It might be, hey, I thought this thing about you and I'm not happy that I thought it, and I know it has nothing to do with you. And so I'm sharing it, and I'm now hyping you to combat that conditioning. And I just wanted to tell you that that's how it went down. Like that, like speaking the quiet truths out loud, not being trapped in the solitary confinement of our minds where we're processing all of this and we are having these really difficult conversations where we're hard on ourselves. The showing up for each other in vulnerability, I think, is so much more powerful than just the amplifying, like shouting from the rooftops hype. The instead saying, it was actually really hard for me to see that you launched a clothing business, because I realize underneath my jealousy is desire. And I want to launch a clothing business and I just don't know how to do it. So I'm really proud of you. I'm going to buy the clothes. I'm going to share it. And can you help me figure out how I can do it too? I think when we start doing that, we're going to learn how to heal ourselves and heal each other in the process.
Totally agree. If you could leave listeners with one challenge or takeaway, what would that be?
It would be, as you've listened to this conversation, as you read my book, I want you to hear this directly from me. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am not here to tell you who to be. I am not here to tell you where to go. I am here to invite you to ask yourself a question. Is it still working? And so when you look at your life and you think about your relationships, your friendships, the way you run your business, the way you work inside of someone else's business, the way you parent, your routine, your daily routine, your traditions, your rituals, are they still working for you? I know that they did work for you at a point in time. They have gotten you to where you are, but you are likely very different now. And so if they are no longer working for you, are you ready to make a different choice? You will need support. And so you have to start to identify the people that are going to help you in this transition and this process of metamorphosis and this growth, and know that you can't do it alone and you don't have to.
And that's key. Having support, making sure you do have support, because you're talking to someone who didn't realize they needed that and
Yes.
did it herself, not knowing anything else, but here I am.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's very important. Molly has one last question, or one of her. What would you say to women who are skeptical of the women supporting women message, maybe because they felt excluded under that banner? And what role do men play in this movement? How can they support without re-centralizing themselves?
For the women who are skeptical, I understand. I get it. You're skeptical because you've had bad experiences with women before. Those happened, they are real, and how you feel about them is valid. There are good women out there who want to see you succeed and who actually are interested in your best life happening for you. So, if you can start to, again, shift that energy from the women that you know do not have your back to those that do, you will start to teach yourself that it is okay to trust again. And they will show you a different way. So that's for the women. For the men, hype women is a noun and a verb. Yes, we are hype women, women who hype other women, but anyone can hype women. We need men with us 100% of the way. Men have, in almost every sector and area of the universe, more power and privilege than women do, even though we are 51% of the population, half of the labor force, and we own 85% of consumer buying power. So these men have to decide if they are willing to use their power and their privilege to give access to the women who have deserved it since the inception of time. It's not debatable, but it's whether or not they believe that there has been such a severe inequity that it is time for the pendulum to swing.
Erin, I thank you so much for joining me here today. Before we leave, where can people find out more about you?
Everything is housed on hypewomen.com. I've got all the ways to find me, to connect, to participate in what we're building with the Hype Women movement, and to buy my book.
Okay. Again, thank you very much. That's it for this episode of The Women's Current, Is the Tide Turning?
If this conversation sparks something in you, we want to hear from you. What's this week's current moment? Tell us on Instagram at The Women's Current. Share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube.
Join us as we explore how women are supporting each other and where do we go from here.
Until next time, I'm Molly Wadzik.
And I'm Sylvia Beckerman. Thanks for listening. This has been a Life of Prey production.